Now, something else we sometimes want to do is maybe we want a user to enter some numbers.
Okay.
So I'm going to go, and this is getting to be a bit crowded on here, so I'm actually going to do something that may throw you off a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this window in Visual Studio called Solution Explorer, which you probably have open on the right-hand side of your screen. And I'm just going to go to my project, Module 4, Working with Numbers, and I'm just going to go, I'm going to say Add a new item, because I want to add a brand new file, because this one's just getting kind of cluttered with a lot of code in it. I want to start a fresh Python file, but I want to keep all my files together because they're all about the same chapter. So I'm going to go Add New Item, and I say Add an empty Python file, thank you. This is going to be my Ask User for Input. Choose Add. And now I actually have two files inside my project. And I can go back and forth between them by selecting the one I want to work on inside the Solution Explorer, or once I've opened them, there'll be tabs open at the top of the screen I can use to move back and forth. So what I'd like to do is ask a user for a value. I'm going to ask, let's see, salary equals input. Please enter your salary, right? Because we learned how to use the input statement to accept values from a user. And then we're going to have a bonus that you're going to receive for the year for your amazing work this year, Christopher. You're getting a big bonus.
Woohoo!
Please enter your bonus. And this is an awesome company because you get to type in your own bonus.
Wow.
I want to work at companies like that.
I need that.
Yeah. And then I'm going to say, then I'm going to have paycheck equals, or paycheck amount equals salary plus bonus. Make sense? Right? Your salary plus your bonus would be your total paycheck amount. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to print your paycheck amount. Oh, and I just caught myself. I almost got myself in trouble. I just noticed I have a lowercase c here and an uppercase c there. I know that Python's case sensitive, so I'm just going to copy and paste that variable name to make sure I type it the same. All right, now I run, and it runs the other program.
Oh. That's not what we wanted.
That's not what I wanted. I created another file. I want to run my new file. Well, that's because when you have more than one file inside a project, there's always one which will run by default.
Doesn't know which one to run.
Yeah, it doesn't know which one to run. So it's still running the old one because it's still there. Now, I can go here, and I can say, start it. So I can run it by right-clicking on it, saying start without or start with debugging, and it will run my code. The other option is if you're going to be running it frequently, you can also right-click on that file and you can say set as startup file. And that'll change which one runs by default when you just press the F5 key or press the play button. I like doing that because usually I'm working on one file at a time and I just want it to run that one all the time while I'm testing. So I prefer to change the startup file option. So if we go back to Visual Studio, I right-click, I have set this as a startup file, so I right-clicked and chose Set Up Startup File. And now when I run, and I just realized I should have a space there, it'll be nicely formatted, it says, please enter your salary. Okay. All right, so I'm sure your salary must be at least $500, Christopher.
I think so.
And your bonus this year is going to be a whopping $75.
All right.
All right.
That's not bad.
And then it comes back and says my total paycheck amount will be $50,075.
Not for nothing. I kind of like that. I like that. That's new math. I like that math. That math worked out really well for me. Yeah, and this is one of those things where you go, whoa, wait a second, what just happened here? How can 500 plus 75? Shouldn't that be 575? You would think? Yes.
Right. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to try and show you what's doing. I'm actually going to try debugging. We haven't seen the debugger yet, but this is there will be times when you're going to need to see what's going on inside the code where you're going, well, why? My code ran, it didn't give me an error message, but the result's totally off. So you might want to see what's happening. One of the neat things you can do in Visual Studio is you can actually execute your code step by step, and as you go through the code, all those great variables you've set up, you can see what's inside the variables, and that's really powerful when you're trying to figure out what went wrong. So let's go back to Visual Studio, and I'm going to click in the margin here. And see that little red dot that appears in the corner? When I do that, that little red dot makes a breakpoint. So I can put it on different lines of code. I can make multiple breakpoints, and I can get rid of them just by clicking on them again. And when you put a breakpoint in the code, then you're telling Python, hey, or you're telling Visual Studio, hey, when this code runs and you get here, stop. I want to look around and see what the heck is going on. So I've got a breakpoint on the very first line of code because I don't know where it's blowing up. And I say, run. And it flashes on the screen. You're like, hey, where's my screen? Ah, there's a hint over here in the corner. Let's go scroll over a little bit here. Try not to make you dizzy. See the little yellow arrow that we've got there? That yellow arrow on the red circle indicates you're about to execute this line of code. So what the debugger has done is said, you put a breakpoint here. You told me to stop when I got here. Well, I'm here. I've stopped. What do you want to do next? Oops, I did wrong control button. So when I have that breakpoint, whoops, wrong one. Apologies. I just hit the wrong function key there for a second there.
Other file.
Oh, file's running too. Okay, let's try this again. Run. Okay, so now here I am again. I'm at that first line of code it's about to execute. Now the neat thing is, when you hover over different points inside the code, it actually sort of shows you some of what's going on. It gives you like hints as to what's happening. But it hasn't executed any code yet, so there's nothing really to look at. So what I'm going to do is I want to execute the next line of code. Over here in the top right corner, you're going to see 3 buttons. Step into is the one you want to play with. Step into means execute the next line of code.
Okay.
So let's just stick with that one button. Just execute one line and go back.
Sure.
So I'm going to hit that step button, and now it executes. Oh, and of course, it's asking me for a value because, of course, that command was ask the user for a salary.
I make $500.
$500. I hit enter, and I'm back in the code again.
Okay.
And the little yellow arrow here has moved to the next line because it's saying, I'm about to execute this line of code. Anything you want to look at? So what's neat is I can actually hover over salary.
I'm noticing something funny there.
Yeah.
I'm noticing the single quotes. Single quotes means string.
Bingo, yes. Remember we talked earlier when we first created our first numeric variable, we said when we said age equals 42, how does it know it's a number, not a string?
Yep.
No quotes.
Right. Okay. So it's seeing that as a string. Because that's right, because input returns a string. That's where things are going wrong.
That's right. The input function returns a string. So what it ends up with is it ends up with a string value for salary, a string value for bonus, and suddenly when you say salary plus bonus, it's seeing string plus string. That means concatenate them together and you get 50,075. Oops, not what we had in mind. So we can see, thanks to the debugger, we can actually see that, oh, we have a number that's being treated like a string.
And that's not what we want.
It's not what we want. So what we need to do now is we're quickly going to go here, and we got this weird result that happened because it was basically treating it as strings. It was as if we had typed in a salary of 500 with quotes around it and a bonus of 75 and got these strange concatenated strings. So what we have to do is we have to somehow convince it that when it gets that result from the input statement to treat it as a number.
Right.
And the way we do that is there are functions that will convert from one data type to another.
Okay. And just kind of looking at that, those functions seem to match the data types that we want. So if I want an integer, I would just use int. If I want a floating, I would use float. Somebody else actually had pointed this out earlier, the str for string.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So these are functions you can use to say, take this value, or the value in this variable, convert it into an integer, please.
Yep.
Take this value, convert it into a long, which is just a bigger integer value.
Right.
Any sort of whole number if it has no decimal places. Float converts it to a number with decimals, and string will take a number and switch it into a string.
Yeah. And actually, there's a couple of people that have pointed out that when it comes to doing something like this, this is something you run into constantly across all languages. Because anytime that I put together a text box, or we're doing command line, that by default it's going to treat it as a string.
Yes.
So that's what you've got back. Now you're going to try and do math with it. Well, now you've got that problem. Now the way that you're going to do the conversions will vary, but the fact that you have to do them, the fact that it's coming in as a string, that's consistent across all languages.
And and you bring up the point of, like, if you decide to start building websites or forms where users enter data, you made an awesome point. That's right. Typically, when a user enters a value in a text box and you ask for the value the user typed in, it's going to give you a string. So you're going to have to convert it to a number to do your math. So this is such a common scenario. It's annoying. And you know how we usually find out we have to do it? We run it, we get the error message, and go, oh yeah, I got to convert that, don't I?
Yep.
So all I have to do in my code, in this case, is I need to say, take the value inside, let's do a float here. Let's take the salary, convert it to a float. Let's take the bonus, convert it to a float. And now it should be taking a numeric value. It takes a string, converts it to a number, takes the other string, converts it to a number. So now I'm adding 2 numbers instead of 2 strings. So fingers crossed. Oh, hang on, I was still in the middle. I just did the editing while the code was running. Let's get rid of that breakpoint. I don't want that anymore. I just want to run my code. Please enter my salary, 500. Bonus, 75. 575. Success. So.
But I liked the old math.
You liked the other math, did you?
The old math worked out better.
Christopher would prefer it if we left that bug in the system. But just imagine the disaster it would be at a company. And it's the kind of thing, you might have had it in your code. It was off printing paychecks. And everybody's going, wow, this is great. Everybody at the company is really, really happy. Just because you forgot to convert a data type.
Yeah, you know.
So it's important to test your code is what I'm saying. You know, make sure the output is what you think it should be. Just because it runs doesn't necessarily mean it's doing what it's supposed to.
Yep.
Always take the time to say, well, if I type in this, does it give me what I think it should give me back?
Always test it.
Always test your code. It's not just knowing it runs doesn't mean it's doing what it's supposed to. It's really important to test.
Yep.
So in our case, to fix our code, we have used converted to a float instead of just adding salary and bonus, and now we're adding 2 numbers instead of 2 strings.
Perfect.
Now, I do want to bring up a little situation of, Christopher, what would you think would happen if somebody typed in a salary of Bob?
Well, it looked like you spelled Bob backwards, but anyway, so, you know, I'm guessing that what would happen is Python would look at it and sort of do what I would do, which is, what do you want me to do with this? Well, it's 3 letters.
Exactly. But so if we go look at the slide here, you know, if somebody types in, I'm going to bring up the highlighter here quickly. So we've asked somebody to enter a value for salary. And then we take that salary value and we've typed in Bob. So salary storing the value Bob. When we get to this line of code and it tries to convert Bob to a float, Python's going to choke. It's just going to go, I don't know what to do with this. And you're going to get some weird, nasty error message spewing all over your screen. So this sort of thing will happen. We are going to look at error handling later in one of the later modules tomorrow. So we will show you how you could handle that gracefully, because I guarantee you someday a user is going to enter something like letters where you only want numbers, and you don't want the code going and spewing nasty error messages to the user just because they accidentally typed a letter. You want to come back and say, excuse me, if you don't mind, could you please enter numbers only?
Pardon me.
We want to be polite to our users, and we don't want things crashing. So we will look at error handling tomorrow, and we'll show you some graceful ways to deal with those types of mistakes that users do things you don't expect, and we got to handle that. So the code would crash. So we've just done a demonstration of showing that data type. So now you have the information you need to complete this challenge.
Okay, so what's our challenge?
Your challenge
today, should we choose to accept it?
Should you choose to accept it? You are going to create a mortgage calculator. There's a lot of websites that do this online. And we have the formula. Your monthly payment is the loan amount times the interest of 1 plus I times number of payments minus 1. And it's this big, scary formula. But all you need to really know is that the user is going to enter a monthly payment. You're going to calculate a monthly payment. The user is going to enter a loan amount, an interest rate, and number of payments. And with that information, using the formula here, you're going to be able to return to them what their monthly payment would be. So that's your challenge, a very real-world problem. But hey, you may find yourself using this code to calculate how much you can afford to buy that car or that house.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic.
So congratulations. You guys have now got the ability to solve mathematical problems using your code.
Start working with the numbers. Excellent. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of hungry.
You guys have been doing well. You've held up so well being here this long. You rock. Now, the good news is we've gotten through the long part of the day. After lunch is the shorter part of the day. We got through 4 this morning. We're only doing 3 this afternoon.
So what do you say we take a break for a meal?
I like it.
And we'll be back in about an hour. So we'll see you guys back here in about 60 minutes. 60, about an hour.
See you soon.
We'll see you then.